Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved in Jesus' name. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm absolutely honored and thrilled to have back on the show Satanic and Masonic ritual abuse and mind control survivor and whistleblower, YouTube and content creator on her own YouTube channel at Mayan Missions, first generation New Zealander, credentialed counselor with a specialization in narrative therapy, communication skill small group training course facilitator, traditional herbal medicine advocate, retreat co-facilitator, and healing warrior, our beloved podcast regular, Sweetest Poppy Joy. In case you missed Poppy's first episode where she shared her incredible testimony, here's a brief recap. Poppy is a satanic and masonic ritual abuse survivor who was born into a multi-generational incest-based family and has recently been liberated from an immense amount of trauma that her body was struggling to contain anymore. Her memory started to surface in 2017 from a few triggers in her surroundings, including a vicious semi-wild dog on the loose, a jellyfish sting that gave her a histamine reaction where her entire body was covered in a rash, and swollen lips and other orifices. Poppy's earliest memories were related to her senses. She's remembered that her eyesight and hearing never developed normally, and her perceptions have been energetic, meaning that she can observe the movement of energy, experience telepathy, and with focus can see how black magic practices are done. Poppy also discovered that rituals are done to empower government legislation. She found how consciousnesses are connected to calendars and astrological systems, and that rituals are performed with dates and planetary alignments. Poppy has a degree in counseling, has specialized in narrative therapy, has training as a small group facilitator teaching communication skills in courses such as Changes That Heal. She has studied traditional herbal medicine during cancer, Morgellons treatments, and was a retreat co-facilitator prior to 2017 when her memory started to crowd in. At the time her memory started pouring in, she was not able to tend to others' lives while her own life needed so much attention. Although Poppy is still actively on her healing journey, she has come so far in such a short amount of time and is now courageously speaking out about her own experiences and what she has learned, in hopes that it'll not only help her own healing, but that it may also help serve those of you on the other side of the screen who are also on your own healing and learning journeys. The first couple times Poppy was on, we did a deep dive into both her testimony and her healing journey. And the last time she was on, we did a continuation of her testimony, diving more into new details of her past, as well as the healing she is doing in the present. Unfortunately, YouTube took down Poppy's last video as she shared some extremely important information about her battle with cancer and the treatment protocols that worked for her. And YouTube labeled that as medical misinformation. This incredible episode can still be found on all other platforms, and I encourage you to watch that episode along with her testimony. I'll have her playlist and the other episode that got terminated in the show notes below for you guys to check out. And today, Poppy is back to expand on some current and past events that will be extremely valuable for us all to hear and learn, including attacks and heart attacks, programming, interdimensional life, emotional change and vulnerability, aliens and non-human intelligence, and so much more. This is going to be a jam-packed episode, following with Poppy Joy, wisdom, personal experience, love, and of course, pure joy. I ask you all to please give this warrior of a woman your full attention as we continue to be blessed with the miracle and opportunity to learn from a warrior who faced the depths of darkness only to emerge as the brightest light. And Poppy Joy is not only a bright light, but she is also a beacon of hope, a living example of what can be found on the other side of healing, and a miracle we get to treasure and behold. Grab a pen and paper as Poppy guides us on another amazing episode and journey where she blinds the darkness with her everlasting light and in turn gives us the power and courage to do the same. Before I finish introducing today's guest, I wanted to give just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you'd like to be on the show, share any information privately with me, or send me a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be written in a Substack article, you can email me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com. I've also partnered with a couple of my favorite brands to get you guys discount codes on some of my favorite products, including Rife Technology, frequency machines, and blockers, and CZTL's high quality methylene blue. Treat yourself to holistic health at a better price with brands you guys can trust. All the rest of my links are in the show notes, as well as the discount codes and links, and I'd love your support across all platforms. Thank you all for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, survivor, overcomer, voice for the voiceless, spiritual warrior, anti-child abuse advocate, walking miracle, content creator, and a woman who is on a mission to speak and bring pure joy into the hearts and minds of all humankind. The one, the only, Poppy Joy. Poppy, thank you for being here with us again today. I'm so glad to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here and connecting and again with the community, this beautiful community. Actually, it's amazing, bringing forth so much healing, so much knowledge, and like healing out of the darkest and the most painful places. It's really amazing. So grateful to you and your community, and I love that you're doing the right technology, because like this is kind of like a frequency war, and so to counter those frequencies can be so important for survivors, because we do get frequencies aimed at us. They do not want us around. So yeah, well done on that. Really, really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a good way to put it. That's a frequency war, whether we're in our houses and it's the EMF from Wi-Fi or 5G, or if it's just being super disconnected from nature and, not getting sunlight and things like that, and our frequency just starts to drop or being around
Yeah,
negativity. Like it's
yeah.
so important that we somehow reconnect with higher frequencies, and like you said, protect yourself from things that could attack you and interfere with your life. It's really scary that that
Mhm.
can happen, and I
Yeah,
know you and so many others deal with that and have dealt with that for a long time, so that's really cool. I love that you're super into holistic health like I am. It's fun to be able
yes,
to talk about that stuff and like explore it, and I know you have
yeah.
had, since you were on last, I know we did a big disclosure about cancer, which was awesome. And it sucks that YouTube took that episode down. But to me,
Yeah,
it means
yeah,
we told the truth. They don't take stuff down.
yeah.
It's true.
It was a bit unbridled, a bit uncensored, so of course. But yeah, also, like, thank you for handling that so well, because I know that you were penalized a little bit for that too, so but we do have these other places that we can actually communicate more, which I'm looking more into too. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And for people listening, if you didn't get that episode, if you didn't watch it whenever it came out, go listen to it. It's up on Spotify and iTunes, BitChute, and Rumble. So you guys can literally go look at my podcast, and I have my entire library on there, and you guys can go find Poppy's episode. But it was, if you have experience with cancer, if somebody else does, like it's an episode you really want to listen to, and I know today we're going to be talking about some health stuff too with your story and with so many others, the health side effects and the things that attack your health from the outside. It's sort of never ending and it's really scary, and I've found through listening to you and others that health is so uh multidimensional. It's not just one thing that's happening and it's consistent that if I get cancer, it's the same exact way that you got it, if you have it, and then the next person. Like we all, our bodies deal with things so individually, and we're only taught really one surface way that things can happen to us, because if we know otherwise, then we can take alternative methods to maybe cure it or treat it that are different than what our doctors tell us. So
Yeah.
I don't know where you want to start today, but we have a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited. And for people listening, we will be talking about some health stuff today, just like last time, which is amazing. But I
Yeah.
want to turn it over to you and let you start where you'd like to today. And I'm really excited to dig into this conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, I think we do start with health because um, trauma has been one of the most frequency lowering things around, that has kept humanity, and not just SRA survivors, we've just had the extreme experience, but everyone. So everyone's been traumatized by the separation, which I've been studying the history of, where it's set in, how it's set in, that, how it's been a massive psychological operation that came in a certain era of time, um, and that so humanity has been going through a long process of evolution to develop. We're here to learn and grow. And there was a time where we were purely shamanic and connected to the earth. We would perceive our world by the wind, by nature, by the way the ducks moved, or whatever. We were actually really one with nature, immersed in nature, living in nature. And so, I've been meditating hard out on this because I felt that consciousness is really, really important to explore, as to how everything came about, but also how we can also raise ourselves out of it. And it's amazing because a lot of what I have seen has come from memory recall of rituals and programming, that I've had to see. So I do this through the journey therapy approach, which beautiful Marie, who's been on the show before, we now really work as a team. We realize that we're on a mission together, actually, with the survivor healing, and also with looking at how everything is, because much of what the healing is with SRA, or it certainly has been for me, has been what goes on in the occult or in the unseen world. So I still have this connection of being able to see energy in a sense. It's been, these filters block out certain light so that everything that is around me isn't sort of swirly. and the more denser, it's interesting because in nature, and if I'm in a very natural spot, that swirliness is really not there so much. But the places where it really is the most swirliest are places like town halls, libraries, courthouses, malls, anything that's really, especially where energetic things are going on, which are nefarious. I can actually sense the distortions in the energy. And so that's just been something that's been with me all my life. But I found it very difficult to be in life because of the way that I do perceive my world. And also because I perceive my world always that way. And I had parents that were really handlers. They were the ones who were saying, no, that's not how it is. So I grew up not trusting in what I saw, and not trusting and how I perceived, which was very, very, very isolating, because I was constantly told that that is not how it was. But now in hindsight, it's exactly how it was. So I've got into the habit now of trying to look at something through as many gazes or ways of seeing as I possibly can. It's like if you look at, people say that they look at the elephant and they only see this part and perceive that part. I want to explore the whole elephant from every way of seeing, every way. And that's a little bit how I've done. But for me, it's actually mostly done with meditation. And because my health was so challenged from, my body, the body remembers all this trauma, and the body remembers, but my conscious mind hasn't remembered it all. It's all been compartmentalized off into little bits and pieces through programming and trauma. And so when I found that meditation, and there was a time where I got very strongly guided to stop looking at all outer information and just go into nature and just to meditate. And these were times where I was virtually bedbound. I've had quite a few episodes in my life where I've been sort of virtually bedbound, not able to get up apart from to go to the toilet, to clean, to grab a bit of food, very basic living. And at those times, I really need to have a lot of time like lying on the earth and being with the earth, and just being in nature. And so I had extensive times of being very alone and isolated, which was part of it's funny because these were part of the curses, but then you turn them around and you make them work for you. And so I thought, right, this is how it is. And so, okay, I'm going to trust this. I'm going to trust my situation and go into it. So it all started with a lot of meditation, incredible lot of meditation, and meditation would guide me to nutrition. It would guide me to activities and also into cosmic knowledge, because the earth and us, we're made of the same matter. Every cell of our bodies, like we return to the earth when we die, whatever. But this is all in the earth, and it's all in the ley lines. It's all in. So the earth holds memories. The earth holds memory of everything that has ever been with her and in her. And when we access and really connect, we can ask any question, and we will come to an answer if we learn that sort of art of questing. So I mean, I just had hours and hours and hours of a day. And I had done things like Vipassana meditation, where you meditate like sort of all day in silence with no other information. And these things were actually a gift to me to start to actually see what is what. Yeah. And it was really, there were times where it was very difficult in that, because in those meditations, I was also accessing body memory, but I wasn't supported and couldn't find the support that I needed, because these memories are so horrifying, so incomprehensible, and so big that for a person to face them on their own, you have to be an utter legend. And I know that some people have, and I absolutely admire their courage and their strength for coming through it. So with me, my life was held back, and I was just getting like more and more and more physical symptoms. More things were happening, like absolutely real symptoms. And a lot was to do with dizziness and, just feeling like I was swaying, and I was, also finding it very hard to stay present in my body. I think I'd been shoved out of certain areas of my body, and other things were in those parts of my body that were put in there from rituals. So this is something that's really nasty, that that can happen. One I'm going to mention straight off the bat, because it's been quite current, and is that I had the memory of being, I was only very little, so I got to see it from the outside, but I was only little, and I was bound to a dead body in a coffin on a slab type thing. And I was tied there and left, with that smell, with the sounds of, these gurglings, and there's all sorts of things that are going on with a dead body when you're a little child, and you don't even really know. At that time, I didn't even really know what death was. It was sort of like, you don't really know what death is until later on in your life. But so here I was tied for I don't know how long, left alone. I vaguely remember being put into darkness, and I believe that was a coffin that was put down, bound. There's nothing you can do. You're terrorized and you're just freaking out. But the thing is that you also feel the energy. So you feel the occult thing. And this was where I felt the death principality came into my life. And I hadn't actually recognized death so much as a principality until I was quite triggered by the Olympic opening ceremony and the pale horse. And also I was very grateful because Marie had tapped into this as a principality. She had remembered that I'd had this memory. I never had that memory with her in her presence. It was on my own. And she said, I think we need to check out this death principality. You remember that you were tied to a dead, corpse. And also Jessie Sebita, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She also did a very good presentation on that opening ceremony, and she talked about the pale horse and the death principality and sort of like Hades that follows it, and it was exactly what had gone on for me. So I had actually been hunted by death all my life. So death as a principality would antagonize me and terrorize me all my life. So there was a time when I was a teenager, and this shadowy being was in my room, and it would just loom at me, like always come close to me. And it was actually, saying to me, I'm going to get you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to kill you. And it would do this at night. And one night it got really severe, and my parents had been out, and they came back, and I was a little bit hysterical with it. And I kind of came running out of my bedroom because my parents came back, and I went, oh my gosh, there's something, and my parents said, their thing was, oh, don't be silly. You've got such an imagination. Don't be silly, and even though I was absolutely terrified, it was like, just go back to bed and don't be silly. You're just being silly. So, but I felt very alone in that, because it was absolutely, these were the things that you could see. So with my sight, you can see big swirling patterns. You can see, and sometimes they do take more form, and they do take, they look like a form of Satan or Lucifer, or this one's just more like almost like a Baphomet type being. So this was always with me, and so I was always in PTSD. I had a lot of very subtle things where I felt death was coming for me, where I was the only one that knew, but no one else could see it, and it wasn't visible to anybody else. And often it was because I was isolated, I was in hermit mode, I'd been too sick. Like, I don't have, when you get very sick, you don't have a social life because you can't go out. You don't, and when you do go out, it's like people see you. And because I do have what would, in Māori they call it ahua. It's like your light, it's like your aura, your so that's what people will see when you go out. And I would go out, after being extremely sick and isolated, and people will always say, oh, you look so great. And and even it happened, like I just had a heart attack on the 17th of July. And then I was actually sitting in the pharmacy and I don't know, I was talking to someone and someone went, oh, you must really look after yourself. You look so well. And I actually said, I've just had a heart attack, And so these are these things that would go on a lot. Anyway, with this ritual, and I think that may have happened to many survivors actually, that they almost get tied to a principality. So principality, I mean, you've got legions that support that. You've got we can look at it and see it in so many different ways. Because I've always seen and interpreted things as energy, it's kind of almost a neutral, more observing way of looking at things. But, you can see these things. Yes, they are. They appear as demons. So I've been incredibly afraid of just about every energy, even Jesus coming as an energy. So even angels, so I kept myself very, very, okay, I'm only going to trust Mother Earth, and I'm only going to trust Father Sky, who's like the Heavenly Father to me, who gives those cosmic frequencies that we learn and grow by, through the form of light coming through the sun. So I was like, these are my two, nothing on the peripheries, even though I've been aware of totem animals like, a black jaguar and the owl and things that I connect with. They've sort of been able to be around me as I just see them as helpers, but they don't, they're not the ones that I would pray to. They're not the ones that I would trust as the pure guidance source, like the earth, because all knowledge is in here. And then, of course, source, I want to say source, who's giving all of those energies that governs our human consciousness here on earth. And if we are absolutely connected with that beautiful sacred source, then we will come into a natural harmony and balance with all that is, because it is absolutely pure. So because during rituals, I'll mention another ritual, because I was terrified of Jesus. I've been really afraid of Jesus, and it's often, even when Christian people would pray and say Jesus or something, I'd actually be quite scared, because now I realize through rituals and things, there's every attempt to infiltrate everything which is beautiful and lovely and organic and working, through the heart and the soul of humanity. And this is one of the biggest tricks I feel that can take us away from something so pure and so sacred, So, and also, like I was also quite triggered from the Olympics. I'll call it a broadcast, the opening ceremony, and I never watched it. I only saw the little snippets that Jesse Sebatar, put out there, and that imagery and everything, because there was imagery on there of the Lord's Supper. So I have Lord's Supper memories, first of all, I have a memory of choosing to come into this life with the mission to take on the experiences that could clear out this terrible separation, this terrible criminality, this terrible mind fuckery. I came here, and in my memory, I'll just say it how it appeared to me, was like a Lord's Supper scene. But I came in, and there was like people sitting at this table, and I came in, and I was an Indian woman, and I was given the name by a guru. So I've been attracted to all sorts of gurus and everything in this life, but I was given a name, a Sanskrit name, which is Mata Manasat, which means she who finds truth and speaks truth, which has been a lot about my life. And it also relates to my Mayan sign, which is 9 knife, which is all about the discernment of truth and ending a grand cycle to begin a new cycle. So I feel like I've been a part of that. That's part of my mission. That's part of why I'm here. To take it on. And like, honestly, it's been so hard. Like I had a friend the other day, I was just crying in a mess, this can happen, and I was crying in a mess, and I was all thrown out, and it was to do with medical. And this is when I found the medical principality, but it was to do with this. And she sort of got me, and she said, remember, Poppy, remember why you're here. Remember you've got a purpose. Remember you're going to get through. And she just said that, and that was enough for me to sort of carry on, because there's just times where it's all too much, and I really, you just need a little bit of encouragement because and more encouragement starting to come around me now as I've cleared away old programs that actually can't even allow that to come close to me. So that's really cool. But yeah, just coming here with this mission, coming here with this purpose. So the communications within that Lord's Supper scenario, it kind of set me up in a way that I thought, oh, I'm here with a team of people, and we're all here to sort this mess out. But then that sort of flung me back into old religious ideas as well, and I didn't quite catch it. And so I started to look and say, is this person on my team? Is this person on my team? And it was interesting because the responses to those people I thought were on my team, including that therapist who sort of had turned into a handler, and that was a nasty scenario for me. It almost became violent, and I didn't even know, like I always just feel very innocent and all these things. And I do feel that I have come here as quite a pure and innocent soul, and they've done the most impure and most opposite to innocent stuff on me, so now I have had the recall, and this is where MK Ultra programming came in after this ritual. So in this ritual, it was to do with dogs that were unleashed. I only remember 2, and they were, these dogs. When I remember these dogs, they're not quite right dogs. There's something about them that's, I don't know if they're really possessed, if they've been, but yeah, they seem to know and go after and behave in ways that they are very, very programmed. So anyway, there were dogs, and there was violence and raping, and but what happened in this scenario was a man was put in there, and he felt his energy, because I feel everything through energy. His energy felt quite priestly, quite sort of priestly and pure. And what he did was that he came into this scene, and he was trying to protect me from these dogs, and he was shielding me with his body. So I was naked, he was naked. I was, I guess in my psyche, I was expecting that I was going to be raped by him, but instead he was shielding me with his body, and I could feel, I was started to feel like I was being saved. Sorry. I started to feel like he was saving me. I started to feel like there was some hope of getting out of this scenario, because in these scenarios, there's never any hope to get out. You're absolutely trapped. There's nowhere to go. It's so orchestrated. It's like so psychological. It's just incredible. Anyway, he was shielding me with his body, and then it was like he must have been getting stabbed from behind or something, because I could hear his body start to collapse and him dying, sort of thing. And then I don't remember, because I still can't remember the most horrific. And so what happens is that the body remembers what it's safe to remember at any given time. If it's too traumatic, then our body will still keep it down. It's a safety mechanism, so we don't just go into massive psychosis and lose our way. So so I haven't seen this next part, but I just think of Carrie's role as the butcher. Bless her. So this man, I know that he was cooked, because it was like there was a balcony and a spit, and he became the sacrifice, and he became the supper at the Lord's Supper, in a scene like that, where I was sat and forced to eat part of, and I think that I choked and blacked out not long after that, and then was taken into an MK Ultra lab after that. So and this was all under the ground. Now I realize it was, and that there are very elaborate places, big spacious hall type places and structures underground, where I feel a lot of this stuff happens. And so I believe there seems to be quite elaborate things under there. Anyway, with this all of this programming, it was savior programming, and it got me in my life always searching for that one that I felt was going to save me. And it was kind of around this religious setting. Now, remember Leonardo da Vinci, he painted that, and he was a grand master mason. So it's got a lot of, there's a lot in that. There's a lot of power, there's a lot of occult, there's a lot of all sorts in that. And also, I believe it was a reframing of who Jesus actually really was. It was like an infiltration that came in, because it wasn't like that. And it wasn't all about blood and killing and sacrificing, as far as I know, with the beautiful Jesus I have now really connected into, that I was so terrifyingly afraid of for so long in my life. I feel really ripped off by that. But also incredibly grateful that he was always there in such a way that when I go into these journey therapies, part of that is that you bring in a mentor, someone who's going to come in, and you go in and you go down and you go into this room, which is just the presence of yourself, and then you just invite a mentor who's going to come and be a companion on this journey with you. and they just show up. So for me, they were always like lion beings, and there was masculine lion being, feminine lion being, and they were also jaguar, like black jaguars for me as well. But so often it was just this presence of this lion being, and he would just show up, and like it was just, oh my gosh, I just felt so safe in his presence, just like yeah, I can do this journey because you're there. And there's a whole unseen world that is really, really good to see. Like we get to see the terrible occult stuff from the satanic experience, but also the most beautiful, divine, and sacred, beautiful presences as well, which I've been afraid of every other presence apart from the earth and source himself, So I've been so anyway, this lion being was always there, and he would come with me on these journeys, and then I'd find like the coordinators, the ones that coordinated everything to happen and align and go on in the different rituals and everything like that. And I would talk directly with this lion being, and he would tell me all sorts of wisdom and all sorts of things about how it all got to be and how it happened. We would talk, we would address these powers, these principalities, these demons, these things, these malevolent energies, and then together we would send them off to source, and then they'd be cleared out of my reality, and then my life would change. So recently that death principality finally got released out of my life after the heart attack, which I'll talk a little bit more about soon. So I no longer feel hunted. Like it's crazy when you get around in life and you constantly feel hunted everywhere you go, and you can't get away. And I couldn't get away from that sense, that feeling. And, like, and the mental health people would just call that paranoia. But it was actually a real experience. So these are the things, and this is why I think it's so important that, and I think because satanic ritual is so interdimensional, in that it's almost like when you go through these gates, which I think Jesse calls like almost like gates of Hades, when you're going into the underground, it's like a different, I don't know, to me it's almost like going into the lower fourth dimension, where they do the rituals, they make the legislation out of the rituals, they empower the wealth and the money for the soul sucking. Like there's a whole level of what's most important to what really runs this time construct. I'm going to call it a time construct because this is what we've got trapped in, a time construct with a massive psychological operation. And this is where I think this programming, this MK Ultra has tried to infiltrate and replicate and reproduce something that always will pull us away from the absolute sacred truth. And so many people go there and then they get caught in a Luciferianism, which is like the bright, shiny, charismatic lights, but it's not the true connection with the absolute pure source. So there's tricks in everything, and I think it's just really important, and I feel like I want to communicate my experience so that there's a lot of compassion for survivors, for Christians, for everyone, like for all of humanity, because it's happening to all of humanity, that there's trickster energies and there's tricks, and there's this way where we can find our way purely back to that organic and pure way of being, which is, to me, it is the way out of this mess as well. I just see how everything links, because I've looked at everything from all points of view, all gazes, from a shamanic point of view, from a historical point of view, from an energetic point of view, looking at everything in every which way. I see how, like, there's quantum like things that line up. There's things like I will say, through the sun we will become one. So that's through the SUN and the SON as well. So like, what I discovered is that these energies, and this is what I love, and I'd love anyone who feels to connect, because I'm only speaking from my worldview or from what I've discovered from me. But if you connect with it, and we realize that source, I still find it hard to say God, because there's been gods of all sorts of things. So I, just for clarity and for my sake, I want to say source, that most and many people would call God. That source is just this incredibly active, dynamic source that is constantly sending us beautiful, pure frequencies, which are light frequencies. They are light codes. They come through the sun. So, how the ways that people can look at the Bible, you can look at it in codes, you can look at it as meanings, you can look at it literally, you can look at it in many different ways, and it can activate us in different ways. Like, I was a pastor's wife for a while, and even though I left Christianity, there are scriptures that still will communicate to me, because they are sacred truth. And one of those is that the meek will inherit the earth. And that is not that we will, and possession and ownership is such an illusion. Like, how could we own our mother, for goodness sake? But it means that we will care for her. And that this is, and when I look at it as a frequency perspective of how time quickens, which is actually, time is an illusion, the light frequencies quicken, then everything will put everything eventually back into harmony and balance, because the density that sits at the bottom is constantly getting stirred up and exposed and revealed and seen for what it is, so that it can be transformed back into a higher frequency. It's like frequency keeps lifting everything up. And as we connect with those frequencies, which are the source frequencies, this is the absolute connection with the Heavenly Father, and with source. Those frequencies are always going to be pure. They're always going to be helping us to rise above. So we all have a vibration which sits lower than our frequency because of trauma. And this is why health is so important, because our body remembers everything. And then we can actually access whatever is keeping that vibration down. It's like goo or sludge that sits there over our frequency, which can obscure our view and trick us and put us in this cloudiness where we can't really see what's really going on until we're really in that flow and in that connection. And the connection is also with the mother, so with the creation, and I mean, there's it's everywhere around, but having our balance with those two, with ourselves as matter. So matter also means mother, and mata manasat, that name is the mother. It's like, it's that motherly presence. So the motherly, and what happened with Luciferianism and how the Masonic agenda came in is they kind of eliminated that motherly part and the feminine. And again, so much ritual was done to me personally, that did that. So you know, I'm a female. I've come here with a female expression. I've been violated in terrible ways. You know, like the earliest big ritual that I recall at the age of 2, it was all about you will submit, you will submit, and basically be a sacrifice and do as I'm bloody well told all my life and being programmed to do. And they were like commands. But there was another one where after raping and I was bleeding from the rape, and so before I went through puberty there was no vaginal rape. There was only vaginal rape after puberty and after I had already engaged with someone that I thought was my choice. But so I was placed on the Masonic checkerboard basically in a submissive stance, in that I was on my knees, folded over, bending down, bowed down below the stairs, bleeding from my backside, and that blood was going on the Masonic checkerboard. And so I have these images of that Masonic checkerboard, and then even the bathroom tiles and the laundry tiles in my house where I grew up were that. And so they were always triggering. But up the stairs there were 2 figures. One was dressed like in the black robes, the black capes, and the black, a man. And then there was another one that was all dressed in, it was funny because the way it appeared to me, it was like all dressed in white, but it was almost like there was this rainbow, shimmery, charismatic energy that was sort of coming off it. And that was up the stairs. So down on the bottom, here I am on the black and white tiles, and up the stairs we've got the black male figure dressed in black and this white male figure dressed in white. They were both looking down at me. Here I am in like a S&M bondage position almost, you know, a submissive stance. And it was still the message, you submit to us. But it was both the polarities of the, and this is what the Masonics do, is they will play both sides. So they'll play the greatest evil, but they'll also play the greatest esoteric, you know, shiniest divine knowledge sort of thing at the same time. So you've got, and then what is happening in our minds, or my mind, speak for myself, is that every ritual that ever happened to me, part of my mind got split off into one of these checkerboards, like the Masonic ritual. So, and it was stuck there like in a cell. And it was, to me, these are like the cells or the cubes of Saturn or Satan, Satanism, where my mind would get split and there's no communication from this cell to that cell. It's fragmented off, and that's a whole part, an altar. God, isn't it amazing how we have altars that we worship from, and then we become altars, you know, like the word, the language, it's just stunning. So what as I've been remembering these parts that have been compartmentalized off into these almost like square cubes in my mind, they start to speak to me. And some of these parts I've been quite afraid of, because some of them have been quite fierce, and some of them, that's the warrior that was missing in me, was starting to come out of these parts that, you know, were just terribly violated and abused. And these parts wanted to be set free to come back all into the one within me. So this is integration. For me, I was given the opportunity to have EMDR, which is it's a technology that some people are finding really helps, and I think that's great. For me, I just got this massive big no, I can't do that. There's something there for me. Now the way that I understand it is that it also can compartmentalize your memories into these boxes, and this was, and I don't want to compartmentalize anymore. To me, this is keeping me in this polarity, the polarity of the extremes. I want to have the experience of the oneness where all parts of me are integrated and coming into a balance and a harmony within, because these memories are important for them not to have their power that they once had, the power for me to continue to be siphoned, the power for me to be continued to be handled, to be continually controlled or taken from or harvested. I want to bring that into balance so that I have reclaimed the power that they took, because honestly, every single survivor and the ones that didn't survive, we have an enormous amount of power. You could call it solar power, that's our sun power, our soul star essence. We all have it, but because it got, they just heaped all this trauma on top of it, like so much trauma on top of us, to try to keep us from actually using our power, but they actually hijacked our power and took our power. And again, this has come through psychological operations. Yeah, so for me, I've needed to look into the history of how satanic ritual abuse even became a thing, and it goes way back. So there's a graphic there of that, the yellow kind of graphic. Yeah, so thank you very much. So I did talk a little bit about this on my first interview, but I filled it out even more. I filled out the history even more since that time to put in everything into the sequence of events, which I feel kind of took us to how it all started. And I feel like knowing how it all started also gives us some clues into how we finish it. It still may take time, of course. So if you see that part in the middle, it says first writing started 3115 BC. And that was what's called the national underworld. And this is where science and capitalism came in. So this is actually a graph created from the work of Dr. Carl Kellerman, PhD, who's a quantum physicist, and he's got other science qualifications, but he spent time with the Maya, and he saw the patterns and the geometry of the sacred Mayan calendar, and how time, which I don't even like the word time anymore, but how the frequency has quickened over eras. And so, we started off like when we're in that cellular underworld, it was like time is so slow. Like just imagine being a rock standing there forever. It's probably a bit like that. But then when we come into the first writing started 3115 BC, what was happening around those times, there's a few things that I kind of are linking into, and I know that it's going to even fill out even more. But these were when the creation of the pyramids. This was the creation on Earth of other made structures. When we come back round to the end with the Masons, it's all about structures and geometries and buildings and all of that. So this is where pyramids and straight lines. started to be created. Before it was all just Earth's nature thing. We had huts and all sorts, but it wasn't these massive, great big pyramids and straight lines and that shapes and everything affect our consciousness. And so we start getting the idea of even straight lines and linear time, which started to come in and creep in. But so at this time, this is the time where the hieroglyphs and the glyphs and then the runes and the writing and the writ came in. And this is actually at the basis of what I would call alien technology in spell casting and the written word. So if we look back, I mean, I sort of have memory from way back. I've just meditated, but when we look back to the time when we were in that shamanic phase and even the brain part, we were in that frontal lobe area of the brain. That's what was, that part of the brain was favored. So that means that there was connection. Then we did have gifts. We had, like, our humanity through trauma and everything that got in, we've been denatured. We've lost our gifts of telepathy, like being able to just, if we kind of just met up with each other with a gaze, and this has happened to me too. I'll give you an example. I was in Australia. I was actually in a supermarket, and I just went into an aisle, and there was this beautiful original Australian man, and we just had a gaze, and we both just, our smiles just went wow, because in that moment we had pure telepathy and we saw each other's souls. We just saw each other and no words were needing to be exchanged. It's just like, you're out doing your thing and I'm out doing mine, and I see you. And it was just like big smiles. And I think that's what we used to have. We used to have this ability with telepathy to because we had all our power. It hadn't been harvested, hijacked, traumatized. So that was before that. Then the written word came in, writing came in, and what happened. So it's interesting because it happened when I followed through. One of the first things that came in that really started the psychological operations, because if you see there, you go into the left brain half. So that means that in that period of our growth, from 3115 BC, it became very left-brained, which is also like the masculine part of the brain. And what happened is that civilization was formed, which became very patriarchal. Now, this was a psychological operation, and this is where Native American Indian people will call it wetiko. And this is like the cannibalistic disease of the mind that set in, that actually took people away from nature, but took people into sort of self-serving and greed and all of this way of thinking, which was like capitalism. Okay, so capitalism really started to take over the earth, and it started again. So one of the first things that happened, the Babylonians. Now, what's Babel? Like talk, words, speech, written language, all of this. And this was in the second millennium BCE. And what happened is the Babylonians created their own psychological tool, and it was Babylonian astrology, where horror scopes were actually started to be formed. So I've just got a note here I'm reading. So Babylon was a megalithic settlement and one of the most powerful forces of the ancient world. They sacrificed human beings to their chief deity, Marduk, as well as others like Anu, a deity of the city Uruk, during the later years of the Babylonian Empire. This is where I see human blood sacrifice started. They started with animals, and each astrological sign that they gave, like Taurus, Baal, the ox, and like some of it was a bird that they would sacrifice. So the animal sacrifices started. So they created a system where there were oppositions. Actually, you had malevolent and then you had beneficent, and their astrological systems, they would observe the patterns of the sun, the moon, and the planets or whatever, and eclipses and things like that, and they would forecast for the hierarchies, for the kings, what the potential was going to be environmentally, politically, for this and that. And so this astrology became really important. And then out of that astrology, the priests created the calendar systems with ritual dates for when they would have sacrifices to appease their malevolent gods. So that all came in, and things evolved around the Greek gods. So it was all about gods, which were energies or powers, some destructive, some creative, but it was all like a psychological operation. Instead of humanity engaging with the life force in the tree, the power of the wind, the shapes in the horizons, the things that we used to know and sense and feel and be one with when we were more clear. So this was like a big change that happened in consciousness, where we went over to the left side of the brain. These things are all here for our growth and evolution. It's just, wow, it's just how destructive everything came to be in hijacking the human soul, which is actually one of the most precious things, more than gold, more than anything else. They used gold to get to the human soul. So people started to be bribed and given more money for this activity and more money for that, and humanity started to arrange itself into orders, structures, and civilizations. And when you start thinking about shapes and the things that were introduced, and you see how consciousness all comes, you can kind of get a sense or a feel. So I kind of get the energetic feel of all of these things. And I see what came in, and people talk about the gods that came to Earth. It was alien technology. And so the technology is actually in the spell casting. It becomes the writ, which is the written word. It becomes legislation. You've got statutes, you've got acts, you've got like covenant. This is an alien technology. Any covenant, a contract. We come here with a purpose, but I'm not going to contract, because that brings me into a binding with an entity. So what I got to see is that we have an id. We are born, this is our instinctive, intuitive way of being, like when a baby goes to the breast and latches onto the breast, that's a natural intuitive instinct. And animals actually live by that. They can get programmed and domesticated and all sorts as well, but when we are just this pure id, and then an entity comes and it latches onto that in the form of this alien technology where we get bound to covenants, to statutes, to agreements, to contracts, all of these kinds of things, that's that entity takes power of our instinctual and natural force. And so we start to get siphoned, our energy starts to leave us and go because of how we've psychologically attached even. And so this is like the trickery, and you could say it's like the draconian reptilian. And yes, you did mention that I was going to say something about aliens. I have to say that the beings that I was at the table with, the Lord's Supper table, after the priest had been sacrificed, the priestly energy, as they were consuming particularly the blood, I could not look. And this is part of me, as I need to have my boundaries with my memories. There are things that I'm not quite ready to really look at. Yes, I could go and I could look at what did they look like underneath the capes that were going up and down in size and changing and getting quite big. And I'm just like terrified out here, like this was just so scary to witness, that I was actually with beings that were not human in there. And so, I mean, they are all still pawns themselves, because it's actually the soul that they're after to do. And this is why blood sacrifices become such a big thing, because that is the life force of a being. That life force is of the greatest value, and the id, our instinctual primal nature, is of huge value, because they can take that and harness that. They can get all our energy to go towards that. I mean, an example of that is people fighting over money and resources. That is exactly what they want, and that is exactly what fuels them, to the point where all our dear Palestinian brothers and sisters are just, this is a big satanic ritual. These people are trapped. They can't get out. Like, this is something that's going on right here, and it has to stop. But it's like everything comes from this satanic basis. Now, where it got really hooked up to Satanism is Cronus. Now, have you got the image of Cronus? Cronus is the one with the other one. Yeah. So this is Cronus. Cronus is the god, the Greek god, assigned to the planet Saturn. Cronus ate his own children so that he would not lose his power or his ability to rule, when he felt there were those around him that would take his power away from him. And this is that Wetiko mindset of the greed and the abuse, where humans will fight with one another for resources. And it's not our innate human nature. Like, I know too that the more that I pour off my being, the more sludge that's from trauma that's been covering over in my cell, in my body, the more that is released, the absolutely more clearer I can see and connect with that, with my true essence, my soul. So having our souls is the greatest thing. Yeah, so that all went through, so that then the calendar systems were created out of the different planets. and so they hold the energy, the beneficial energies and the malevolent energies of gods. Now, we never used to have the whole concept of good and bad and right and wrong. It's actually a mental construct. So it's come about. So this era of that sixth wave was a highly psychological era where everything was put into, we came into like an illusion. Through time, we got separated from the earth and the ways of the earth, going more and more and more into an artificial worlds, more and more into technology. Actually, if you go into my YouTube channel and you look at the one that says 10 Earth, it will explain a little bit more of that. So I found out how that works. They have like these 12 Horises hours in a day, that where you'll have different parts of the body that are more active at different parts of the day, and then they assign those all to planets. And then they even brought astrology into the ancient ways of herbalism, which I have seen and explored myself, both through recall of my memories and the rituals that I was involved in. So I seem to be, so there's royal lineage in my family, connected to the British monarchy, the Duke of Lancaster, and who never became a king, but he raised kings. And even in past life, I was hunted by King James. I have memory of being hunted by King James. That came out, I was a child. They must have still been having hunting parties even back then, through the monarchies, through the royalty. I had a very clear memory of being a little girl and hiding in a thorn bush to try to protect myself from the hunt, but being found and then being pulled up onto King James' horse with him and dealt with. So what I saw is that they were taking all these beautiful nature children, Celt children, whatever, from those that were still living close to the land, and it was innate to have the ways of herbalism and the connection with nature with us. But what I saw is that women, who they called witches, some were burned and some were dealt with in other ways, but some were kept and some were bred. I have memories of these things too. It's been with me for eons, actually. So I'm glad we're nearly out. but they even put astrology into all the goodness. Like herbalism was a pure thing, and then they introduced herbology, astrology into that. Like I've got old herbal manuals here where they talk about the astrological component to the plant. Now, when I connect in with the plants, now I just come from my own pure feeling way. There's nothing astrological about it. That plant, when you can know how to connect with it, with a plant, that plant will directly, it's telepathy, it is telepathy, it will tell you and communicate with you. And I'll talk about it, and it will even tell me how it wants to be used in medicine. They do some of them want to give their life for medicine. And this is the true way of herbalism. But they took that, they made it into, so the men became the herbalism. So if you look at all the books that were written about herbalism, all the ancient ones, they were all written by men. And they all had this patriarchal spin that was even brought into it. So everything that is good and beautiful and lovely will be infiltrated in this world. So the way of this imposition that came in through alien means and technologies is always a replication. It's an infiltration that will look very, very, very close to what is actually true, but it won't be. And in that we lose and we start going around and around and around, and like these karmic wheels where we just can't get out. It's like a time trap. And that time is even a psychological operation, that it's a linear thing that leads you to commerce, really. So when you look at the energy of the Gregorian calendar, which is what the world is really run from now, that's the one that dominates the world, not Earth, but the world. It's all about slaving and working very hard for the man, and competing and schedules and agendas and timings, all for the patriarchy, and all to bleed us and for our souls, which is our absolute connection with Earth, because we are her, we're made of the same stuff, and that's our where we realize and come to know ourselves again. That's where we can get lost. So yeah, it's a huge, big psychological operation. Shall we just look at the last little graph that I look, because that shows more clearly. This is one by Dr. Carl Kellerman, who I talked about before. So this is actually showing the 9-storied pyramid with the different waves and the states of consciousness and activation dates. So everything is about consciousness here and the different waves of time. Okay, so that 5th wave here, he's called the Pictoon rhythm. If you look, that was where the frontal lobe of the brain was activated. There was unity, peace, harmony, connection. And then we go up to the Baktoon rhythm, and that's where they started the long count calendar, which ended in 2012, and the infiltrators came in to make it look like the whole Earth was going to just finish, and that there'd be some big sudden strong event, and just throw everyone off the whole truth of the Mayan. The actual Mayan elders just meditated on that day. They felt incredibly like they overridden in how the West had taken over and infiltrated this calendar of their sacred knowledge. Yeah, so when we went into that 6th wave, that's where the left brain, which is your logical, sensible part of the brain, came in, and humanity went into capitalism and religious ideas. And even the beauty of the presence of Jesus Christ became a religious idea, rather than this one of these amazing energies that we find because we're just in nature, and it's like this energy that wants to just calm and be protective and nurturing and mentoring and encouraging with us. Well, this is how I found it to be. And then when we went up into the seventh wave, the cartoon rhythm, that was where the more reptilian part of the brain, the back of the brain, was more activated. 1755 AD, big year in the United States. And all this technology was still getting put in place with declarations and treaties and covenants and all sorts of things. But that's that defense part of the brain. You know, we had World War One and World War Two in that era. And then when, you know, and we're looking at the frequency is quickening and quickening and quickening with every cycle. So then when we get up to the 8th wave, that's where the right brain was activated. And this was when also, you know, from the 5th of January 1999, and then there was also this sort of there was a feminism that was rising, but it was very out of balance. And, you know, and then people started to get more in touch with their arts and their creative side and all that. But that was still a short. But a lot of people don't choose to evolve past the 6th wave, and they've wanted to stay in this rational sensibility as they might see it. But then going up to, and then when we came to March the 9th, 2011, we came back into that frontal lobe area of the brain, and everything was about coming back into a unity consciousness, into a oneness. And so this is what our task has been. And when you see the little ones that are born after this date, the most amazing souls, when they are just left in their natural, you know, when they have an opportunity to rise up quite naturally, they are very, very peaceful and geared up for unity. And the wisdom that is coming out of these young souls is really incredible. And that just goes to show how that consciousness changed. So the good news is that we're coming back into this unity consciousness. And yeah. Are you still there, Emma?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I just couldn't see your photo anymore. There you go. Yeah, and so there, yeah, that's sort of like a brief overview. So like what I want to say is I always want to give people hope in this, and that we are actually coming into this, that SRA survivors for the first time in history are coming to the surface now, and they are telling their stories and their discoveries and the things that they discover, like, you know, the SCAPE program and the work of the CIA and how our brains get put into parts and compartmentalized. I'm learning from all the survivors. I learn from other survivors, and other survivors learn. You know, we're all learning from each other. Like, we are all bringing pieces of this picture together that's helping us to get out of this mess, so no more souls may be taken and harvested, because that is what is so valuable here at this time. Yeah.
You're so right. It reminded me of this, whenever you were just talking about that, it reminded me of this quote that I read, and I forget exactly what it said, but it said something along the lines of, you know, your soul is the most valuable thing of all because both God and Satan want it.
Yes.
Like, whoa, like that. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, I feel that we were given it, you know, like this is the greatest treasure. This is the greatest treasure. So for me, Source has given me this, and nurtures me in this as a fractal of the creation of Mother Earth, even, you know. So I kind of see Source as giving and nurturing it, whereas I kind of see that force, the malevolent force, which, you know, in a sense we created, we were hijacked, and we created it to be empowered even more and more and more and more through our trauma, until we could get smart about it and undo it, as the one that wants to take it, because they want to take it for artificial means and artificial purposes. And that is that technology, which is alien technology, in the way that every word that we utter, every intention that we have, every prayer that's ever spoken has power. And you know, from our soul essence, if we're coming from that place with our prayers, with our words, with our intentions, we can be incredibly powerful to clear and cleanse. And I really want to just give a big shout out to survivors. I've been really feeling this so much because I talked to some beautiful survivors behind the scenes. They tell me what they do out there, and we can only tell one another because it's such huge, big work that if people knew how much and how much of an effect that we have on clearing this invisible field that has so much power over us, we are doing it. And it's also making it easier for other survivors that are starting to remember, because the field is being cleared up more and more and more for them. So the malevolence isn't so harsh anymore. And it's just like it's all just getting shaken up and shaken off. And we are, I know it and I feel it in this life, we are going to experience the power and the beauty of our own souls and what that attracts in life. Because just doing so much intensive work with Marie over this time, I've got to understand now, why is it that I couldn't attract love into my life? Because actually I couldn't even magnetize it because it's an electromagnetic kind of thing. And this is where it gets really crazy, because these demons and these energies are also electromagnetic interferencing. Like I know that when they come to when people are actually doing their black magic to me behind the scenes, which I know they do because I get to see it and sense it, I can feel the heat. Like I can just break into a sweat. And it would often happen at the same time every night. And then I got really savvy to it when I had the heart attack. So when I did my third, we talked about the medical one, or the one that they took off, this medical misinformation, because apparently it never even happened to me, that I didn't actually help myself out of cancer. That's what they want me to think or believe. But oh gosh, where was I? So when people do send energy to you, and they have not wanted survivors to speak. They have not wanted us to get these messages out. They want to keep as many souls as possible. So if there's any one of us out there that looks like, okay, we might be able to help souls through this time, they'll be on us, and they are, and the whole time that I have been doing public sharing, I will put out something. I feel the response that comes back. I feel the attacks. Like sometimes I had to write and then run, go and get out in nature and just be in that safety of nature, because, okay, it has an effect out in the field with all the energies. And some of that energy is the artificial intelligence. It's everywhere. It's infused through everything. It got into every little pocket, every little unseen little crevice, but we've been upturning every stone as survivors and making sure that they can't get in here and they can't get here, and you're not going to get children over there, so it's like, we're doing it. But yeah, like this is when I did actually really realize that death was a principality that was affecting my life through, others, another survivor who knew about it, Jessie, and then Marie, who watched that and said, oh, I see that. And like when I do the journey theory, it's absolutely totally my process. She never puts any thoughts into my mind and anything. It's like, what do you see now? It's always straight from me and straight from my psyche, so and that way, it's absolutely clear. But yeah, the day that I had the heart attack, so the night before, because I still take medicinal cannabis, I take it for sleep and for pain. I'm still healing the last of this cancer stuff, and the progress is going great, by the way. But I take medicinal cannabis, but because I take it every night, then it builds tolerance. And every now and then I want to reduce that tolerance. And so that night I thought, right, I won't take it tonight. And like I won't, I generally won't sleep all that well. And I know I'm not going to have a really restful night, but I know how to breathe and I know how to get through. And normally I can just breathe my way through and stay in this calm state. But this night I was tossing and turning and I was all over the place and the cat was all crazed and and the next day I was having trouble with lymphedema, like swelling in my face, which is just to do with this cancer which is coming out. And I had blood pressure problems and my blood pressure got so high. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really, really out of control. This is crazy. And I was trying to go outside and I mean, it was a bit wet and cold winter here. And I was trying to, lie as close to the ground as I could and just be and get the sun on me to try and just, get calm and all of that. And I'd had a message from Marie earlier that day, are you okay? And I just sort of said, oh, I'm having trouble with my blood pressure. And she didn't say anything at that stage because Marie and I, we're very close friends too, and we do have telepathy and feel one another and support one another's journeys. So I could feel the energy on me. I could just feel it on me. And it was like, I was lying out there, I went, I'm under attack. I'm under attack. And I actually came in and I had about 3 different people I actually tried to connect with, but I tried to connect with Marie and say, I sent a note to her, say, Marie, I'm under attack, and I was seeing that I was going to have to call an ambulance. I was seeing that things were dangerous. I could see, I was quite frightened because of the MK Ultra stuff at hospitals and the medical system and, just all the false diagnoses and things that I've had in there. And so I was going between calling the ambulance and Marie. And Marie took me through some processes which helped me with the fears because I think she also knew. She had actually seen that someone was having a heart attack. She actually felt herself have a heart attack and she asked the question, is this mine? And she got no, and then she eliminated it down and she realized it was me. So she was watching out for me that day. And so when that came, we did some things. I could address some fears about hospitals, ambulances, all that. So I was in touch with the ambulance people by phone, and I was watching my super high blood pressure, like very dangerously high blood pressure. You're supposed to call the ambulance like that. So I did, and they were saying, no, you're okay, because I didn't have any chest pain. And so I was like, okay, I was just trying to relax, trying to, talk to my daughter, do things that I could do just to bring myself into this calmness. But I just couldn't. I was really feeling flippy, like just really flippy. and then I started to get quite a heavy pressure right down on the bottom of the heart, where etherically another beautiful friend and I saw a golden hook and realized that I'd been hooked. So something was hooking me in the heart. And for me, I was still going through, I was vulnerable because I was still feeling this big absence of having loving presence around me in my life, like being isolated, just going through this healing, really struggling some days to get, to cook, I sort of gave up cooking a little while ago. I just haven't had the energy. So I tried to get my nutrients in and all that. But, I felt like, why is love not around me? And I was quite heartbroken. That was a heartbreak in itself, which I was trying to deal with and like, what's wrong with me? Because all the other survivors, they have partners and people that actually might live with them, or people in their sphere that they have that support with. And I sort of had felt that I didn't. So of course I was vulnerable. I hadn't taken my nighttime protection because the cannabis has been incredibly, it's like it really fills out that auric field. It seals off the cracks where things can get in through your field. But anyway, I really felt that really strong heat coming over me and knew that it was an attack. And then it did turn into a heart attack, and I ended up, you know, going by ambulance to the hospital. The ambulance people were amazing. I've also discovered that there's natural things that you can do. If you're ever having a heart attack, you can hold this finger and it will comfort you. This is the finger for your heart. And this is what I learned through the acupuncturist who actually managed to balance up my heart energy after the fact. And that's why is that important? It's because I lacked the yin heart energy. The yin heart energy is the feminine receiving of love heart energy. I lacked it in my life. I was in yang heart energy, which is like give it out, get out the love, pour out the love, put it everywhere, you know. But as far as receiving it, it was really hard. And I also found it really difficult to just keep loving all my parts, you know, like, because so many have come up and needed so much attention. And it's like, you know, I had to pour all of that love on me. But of course, I was set up and I was vulnerable, and an energy came in on top of that. So the heart attack that I had to have an angiogram. And the angiogram, well, I didn't have to, but I accepted an angiogram. That angiogram showed that my coronary arteries were healthy. They were fine. In the report, it said near healthy. So no stents were needed. It wasn't a normal heart attack. They called it a stress-induced heart attack. Because the enzymes were there that are present in a heart attack, that's what just that's when they know that you have a heart attack. Those enzymes, they were low levels, but it was still a heart attack. Like I could still breathe, I could still feel the pressure. Yes, part of me was like, oh, I could die. And I was incredibly calm. And, you know, I think like the ambulance people were sort of a little bit impressed at how calm I was. But I think it's because I learned how to be incredibly calm, and I had to be incredibly calm. I was altered to be incredibly calm, to just stay in this little compartment while the most heinous things can come and no one would even know. And this is how I think that I've been in really dangerous situations. People can be very, very abusive at me and they won't get any reaction out of me. So they don't even think I'm aware of what's happening, but it is all seen and contained inside. So, yeah. Yeah, it's, yeah. And then when I was in the hospital, I learned more about MK Ultra because it was bringing that to the surface. So in the hospital, I had a lot of memories. I felt safe because of Source in the little bubble. It's like I constantly told myself I was going to be okay. Marie was there for me online every day. Like one of the things that really came to the surface was that now when they take your temperature, it's a device that it has lights on it and they go straight for your pineal gland and they want to just stick it right on your head. And I'm like, anyway, they went for that, and I found myself going, no, I actually put my arm up once and sort of went like this, and once I went, you know, because it was early in the morning, and it was like, and it was like, and then I had to explain. I said, oh, look, this is PTSD. Please, can you use a different one to take my temperature, not the one with the lights, because I have that memory of having things all around my head and lights flashing and frequency things. And I really feel like there's something in those thermometers that go straight for your pineal gland. I just watched, like I was kind of surrounded by patients. It was like a train station, and a lot of them were mentally ill and really stressed. It was really sad, and you don't feel very safe. And then, I just watched her temperature being taken, and in the moment, like, she was kind of in this reactive phase because she was just not well and she was seriously ill, and they put it on her head, and she kind of just went like that. And I was like, oh, because I was actually watching. It's like, show me. And I just think there's all sorts of technologies in medical. I just think that we've got to be careful about the technologies now. They're in everything medical. Yeah. And I mean, I was in touch with Anonymous years ago, and I was invited to sort of just be in an anonymous group because they said, oh, you speak like one of us. But mine was all from purely meditation or psychic perspective, where theirs was from what they actually were seeing. So I got to see that they were unearthing that this regime was even going to happen years before it happened. So when it was happening, it's like, oh, here we are. I didn't think we would get this far, actually. I was hoping we would have cleared this up by now. Yeah. So that's that kind of part of the medical part that fits in there, which again, it all fits in with alien technology as far as I can see. That demonology, and this is where they even infiltrated, there are these, our heart, our soul knows the truths that are scriptural truths, and it also knows the ones that aren't. Like, there's a scripture somewhere in Hebrews that says that blood is the atonement. I'm sorry, no. That's not my reality. That's not my truth. That blood is to kill is the only way that can atone, that can bring us into oneness. To kill and take the blood and take the soul of another human being. And this is also where I felt that they took Jesus, because they pinned the Gregorian calendar onto Jesus. So you've got before Jesus, before Christ, then you've got Anno Domino or whatever, which relates to God. But what God? What God? Because look what that calendar does. It's actually a satanic calendar with satanic ritual dates where they commit these rituals on certain dates, which actually I'm the only survivor that I know. Or actually, I do know one other private survivor who won't speak out because she's got children that she has to look out for. But she's the only other one that knows and sees that an actual ritual can empower a legislative act, and that it fits into that technology. And this is where it goes into the masonic agendas, which, I mean, there's not just the Masons as the secret orders, but the secret societies they all go back to, well, my friend, I feel confident enough to say, and take it or leave it, whatever, it might resonate, it might not. My friend says that it goes back to what's called the black nobility, that they don't live on money. They don't live on any of that. They live on the fruit of the souls that are harvested and the blood. So they are behind the hierarchies, the Rothschilds, they stand behind there, and that is what they serve. So and that is purely the soul taking through the blood of life force. So this is where I feel like now I'm so relieved. I'm so relieved that the real Jesus is in my life as a real force, and I'm no longer afraid. I'm still breaking down some of those fears a little bit too, but he's absolutely cool with that, because he even presented to me in a way that I could see that I wouldn't be afraid. And so I will just keep with this beautiful connection, who has actually, I'm sure he's probably even what showed up when I was 2 years old, as he looked like a big gold and beautiful presence. Yeah. And that golden presence is it's sacred light. It's like the real sunlight. I think our sun's supposed to be yellower. but yeah but when they put that calendar onto his life, they did it in such a way where the blood was the atonement, and so that kept in the sacrifice energy of we always go after the blood. And even Christians are told that it's the blood that atones. And all through the Bible that came before Christ, like the Old Testament, you see it was about blood sacrifice and Abraham sacrificing his son, or you have to pay with the blood of your most precious and divine, and this has been the technology which I feel has been infiltrating and infusing our system, instead of this. Like, to me, Jesus is all about life. He's about life. He's about the possibility of us, coming into this balance and this harmony with nature and all of creation. I mean, he was the one that wanted to upturn the taxpayers' tables. He was the one that was booty enough to, he was like strong enough to, sorry, I don't know if that's the right word, but he was the one that was strong and such a threat to the people at that time that made such big waves with his courage. And that stuck, actually. I think that has stayed with a lot of us. So he's family to me. He's a family of those that get sacrificed because of their immense innocence and purity. And I just know that in satanic ritual, they take little babies who are absolutely pure. They take, the pregnant woman. They take those that are the pure and innocent ones as well.
Animals too.
Pardon?
Animals too.
Yes, and the animals, those, yeah, beloved animals, who actually are, when we connect them with nature, we see the work that the animals do. And you connected with your own little one, and you get to know them in this way that no one else knows them. Like, you have telepathy, all those little ways and all those, and when he's alerting you to something. Is it a boy? Yeah, yeah. So he alerts you to something. He sees something. My cat, like, last night, I watch where my cat is. So look, I've put out some big stuff on the internet lately. I was going to have this with you. I went to the acupuncturist yesterday. He worked all on my jaw, which has been, needed to open and express. But my cat was lying and wanted to sleep on my chest last night. So she was protecting me. She was protecting me big time. And I had a good sleep, knowing I'm safe and protected, but also because I don't feel the death principality after me all the time. What a relief. Can anyone imagine? What is it like to be hunted your entire life? And it isn't just paranoia. You get told it's paranoia and that it's all in your head, but it won't leave you until it does. But that death principality. And then I also discovered that there was and also just speaking with another survivor, she's like, there's a medical principality. Oh yeah, of course it rides along with the death principality. A doctor is the only one who can pronounce you alive or pronounce you dead. And those words are incredibly powerful. A judge has the power to incarcerate you, sentence you, whatever. But a doctor, and this is another survivor that's told that I've talked to, has the power to declare life or to declare death. They are there when you're born, and they are there when you die. Ultimately, that's what they want. And when the baby is born, the blood samples are given. So it's massive. It's just a massive, big um, agenda that's highly alienly based by these, what they would call themselves, the gods or the elevated or the elite. They still call themselves that. They still like to call themselves the elite, but they are actually the ones that are visible, that are calling themselves the elite, have all of this behind them. So they are tools for the bringing in of gold and wealth, and they're the ones that will do the most terrible riches to make a whole river run in blood, to fuel their gods, their malevolent gods, which they have to appease so that they can make a way in their life and have this and have that. But with the way that the light frequencies are going, everything is getting vibrated off, and all that lower density is leaving. But it depends on our frequency which way we go. So connection with source, with nature, and our ancestors. Jesus is my ancestor, and I've been afraid, and I'm opening up now, knowing that now that all these other things haven't got me by like shackles by the ankles, then I can dive and be with that now. The lighter energies, the brighter energies that I have been afraid of. I mean, it has kept me in a pure stream. Then it's like, well, this is all I can handle for now. Just up and down with mother and father, and but yeah, so life's opening up for me a lot too.
I love that you're able, no matter what crosses your path, not only do you overcome it and your perspective on it is very high level, but I love that you learn these lessons from it that you teach yourself that I don't think people do very often. I think a lot of times something happens and people think, why is this happening to me? And I feel like you're somebody who says, why is this happening for me? Like, what am I trying to learn or benefit from? What can I take from this that's good, even though what happened to me wasn't good? What's something
Yeah.
that I can take from it and like transform it into something good instead of just letting it add toxicity to my body and like negativity and low vibrations? And I wanted to ask, so you sort of figured out a long time after it happened that you had this death principality, and you're probably not the only person who has that. And some people, this might be very new. If somebody maybe wanted to test if that's what they have, or if they think that they have that, what would you recommend them do? And I know that what you did is just for you. It doesn't necessarily mean that, it's 100% of people things might work for. But just for people who might be thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? I think I might have that,
Mm,
or that might be attached to me. What would you recommend for people?
yeah. Well, I think Dee is onto it. You interviewed Dee, and she was doing QHHT hypnosis. What I like about that, and what I love about the journey therapy, is you get to see what's going on. And when you get to see, you get the exposure, you get to see the dynamic, and then you can clear out that dynamic or that energy. So I don't know, we are all different, but the first thing I would do, actually, if I'm just talking to a new person from the street, is I would actually say, well, what is your connection? Where are you connected? Do you feel connected with the source? Can you pray for your answer? Because for me, the first thing I ever do, and actually even when I didn't know I was so connected with Jesus. Sorry, but it's just so funny. It's like, that also that you're the one that has been my one that's really allowed exposure to come on my story. And it's just brilliant how that worked. But prayer is the first thing I've always gone to. Even I don't know. I think it must have become a habit because I have what we call, light language, or some people call in tongues, and to me it's an energy frequency thing. So I will passionately call out, "Show me the way!" Every single time I get shown the way, and when I need to say, "Show me what is this, and where did this start, and how is this?" Well, the answer will come. The answer will come. I like, it's also, um, I understand, because this happened to me, is that, having been in an open grave ritual and things like that, you can get repulsed even from the earth and from nature and think, oh my God, it's so dirty, it's so horrible. So I think we have to have compassion on ourselves and be absolutely honest with ourselves as what we are feeling. Like I had this part, and I almost didn't want to listen to this part because it was so entitled, and I thought, that's no, that goes against my values. So I couldn't listen to this part. It's so entitled. Was, why are you so entitled? Actually, it's because I've been ripped off all my fucking life. and and that I have actually wanted to have the joy of having my needs met beautifully in nature too, but it came through as like, you should give that to me, that was mine and that was taken, and this part is saying that because it was so hurt and so destroyed. So then my compassionate part wants to come in and go, yes, you were taken from you, and we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. Don't worry, it's all getting taken care of. We've got this, we've got this. So I'll talk to myself like that and give myself love. So parts therapy has also been, I'm going to pursue it more. And I'm, grateful too, because John Ulla taught me so much about that. And he actually, even some of the things he said triggered me into remembering, in a safe way, So a safe and compassionate way. Really, really good man. I wish we had one of him over here, because that's who I would be seeing right now, for my treatment. Yeah. And, even Jerry Mazinski is another incredible guy, who I've listened to, all this time. And I've been listening to Jesse, and I've been listening, and I've been like, just have to look and laugh at ourselves. It's like, oh, but they're so going on about Jesus all the time. This is me, feeling, coming from this afraid place and all this. But I really need to hear them, because they're really saying this truth, and I want to hear them. And then Jessie would have her prayer, and she'd call Jesus Lord, and it was like, ooh, and things like this. But and then I see, well, look at her connection now. Look at what she knows and what she can share and who she is now. And looking at, and most survivors have some kind of a connection or other to it, and some people are more in a ferocious stage, and some people are more of a gentle stage, and it's just exactly what they need because of what happened to them, and so it's a huge amount of compassion I have on every survivor, everyone. And that, and I feel so close with this beautiful young survivor, who's just been through absolute hell, and her parents aren't even her own, and she was never told, and all these things, and she's been trafficked all her life, and it's just been hell. And she's had this beautiful faith in Jesus, and she always stayed with me. And I was like saying these things, like, oh, look what they did to, they've written this calendar, and it's not even, and I still hadn't connected. And she always held the line with me. And when I could say to her, actually, I had this Jesus experience and I feel totally different now, and I could talk to her about it, like we could just celebrate together, because she gets it. And then even another survivor friend, I was like talking to her today, and I said, I've had this experience with Jesus. She goes, yeah, Jesus is cool, and this is what she was coming. And it was like, I didn't even really know that aspect of her, because it was so private within her, and it's like, Okay, because there is something. He's an ancestor, you know. I if I want to go back to the star-seeded lineage of the Lyran, you know, that's where I feel him too. And it's interesting because we're going through the same belt in space where these, you know, according to some or the knowledge, where these wars and destruction happened, and Lyra was destroyed, and there's shards of trauma that we're revisiting at this time, you know. So energetically, people are picking up on that where this technology came in and destroyed and separated us basically from source connection, which has been the greatest trauma and the greatest pain for humanity, because it is in that connection that we have that sacred flow and balance in life. And without it, we're just going round and round and round in a karmic loop, just getting our asses kicked, you know. And now I am very, very well aware, and I mean, I'm sure that a lot of survivors feel this and know this too, that the field has been so drastically cleared up because of all of us and others that are still clearing it up, because, you know, anyone who's been through trauma is clearing it up. Every trauma we clear up, it's almost like that energy, that electromagnetic energy, is also cleaned up. And then we attract a different reality, then we attract a different flow. And when we are completely reclaimed our souls back, you know, the power that we have in connection with all that sacred and is going to create an amazing new earth reality, because it's all connected to consciousness. And so our perceptions are all over the place. But I really feel that we are finding our way out of this mess now. And I want to give people hope. And I've had hope now too, you know, that some of the harshest things that have been attached to me, the entities, you know, because wherever trauma is, then that electromagnetic energy in the form of demons or whatever can come in, and we are affected. So the answer is health, healing, vitality. It's mental health, like, because, you know, I'm not a young spring chicken anymore. Even though I feel my soul is, in some ways it feels ancient and young at the same time. But you know, it really did go to my body, and my body did hold it, my body did remember. And unraveling it, my body is also, I'm having these conversations with my amazing mentor and discovering the spiritual truths, or the you know, we can't even compartmentalize it down into one aspect. It's a whole, we're a whole system, we're a whole being of physical and mental and spiritual and etheric, everything all. Yeah, and that is where that amazing energy can infuse every little bloody fragment of our being and our essence. And we become timeless. So the time trap is an illusion in some ways to keep us going on a line. So if I get terribly triggered from the term timeline, because it is the illusion, and people go, oh, we're on this 5D timeline, and it's, well, that's an oxymoron, because in 5D there isn't time, we're in all time and no time, like we're ahead of time, we're behind time. Like when I go back into a journey therapy, I'm going into that past, I'm going through back into time and creating something else that's affecting here. So it's like weaving time. So I find these keys to also in the Mayan calendar energies, which are very pure right from the beginning. And they keep me in my flow. They've been an anchor for me all along. So they are the vision, and of the cosmos, of what they call space and time, but I'd call it space and frequency. So yeah, yeah.
What are
Mm.
your thoughts on time travel and what that maybe is or consists of? Have you thought about that? I'm sure you have.
Oh, I think about that a lot because there's been nefarious time travel. So the masters, or the ones that fancy themselves the masters of the fourth dimension, let's say, for example, Donald Trump, time traveler. Okay, look at his pyramid. I mean, sorry, it's not a pyramid. Look at his tower filled with the black cubes, Saturnian black cubes, which Saturn, you go back, that was called the father of time. And that's where they pinned it astrologically. They even took it away from the sun. So they took it away from Jesus and they put it into Satanism. So Satan became the ruler through the time and through the calendar, the calendar systems. But when it comes to the energy of commerce or money, which certain people are all about, I believe that they use time manipulations to um, to manipulate markets, and they call it markets. They call it stock markets. We're the stock. We're the souls. So they're manipulating us in a sense. So this is where I think time has been in a nefarious way, where those that have got to be elevated elite ones, as they call themselves, they have known how to manipulate time, even through the calendar systems and everything in this matrix, that they are disempowered from being in all time and all at once, because that only belongs with source, and it's only with source that we are going to be free of that. And so they keep us in a holding space, locked in a sense, where they've been able to harvest us by our belief, by putting our trust and faith into technology, into their artificial intelligence, into their medical protocols, because medicine has been a major part of the regime, as well. So yeah, that's where I see it fits it. So we become almost like Puritans of time or frequency. So again, this is where I feel the illusion is that time is an illusion. It's like we are told that you do this and that everything's conditions. So conditions, being conditional, is alien technology. Then, if you're good, you get rewarded here. If you're bad, you da 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 da. And there's so much ifs and whens. I mean, there are natural things like I don't know. It all comes down to belief, because like, I think we are interdimensional beings, and that aspect of us is, this is how I see it, an aspect of us is in every dimension, but our consciousness is only connecting to certain dimensions. So they want to keep the consciousness to the lower dimensions, which are all around, like, and this is why they even harvest sexuality. Sexuality is a part of it's part of the foundation of our existence. It should be, well, it could be a very sacred creative force, but they've hijacked that. So the amount of demonology and hijacking that comes around sexuality for everyone, why is it that beautiful couples with beautiful connections can have a beautiful connection and then feel like they're depleted? It should be building and building and building if we were all ourselves. So humans are siphoned wherever there's trauma, and sexual trauma is one of the biggest, and what they go through, especially where they can split the mind through the anus. you know, sorry, I was being graphic. I forget sometimes. Um,
You're fine. People have to hear it how it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's, where basically they use pornography even to get people sexually excited to take that, to harvest that energy. It's like an electromagnetic attraction, that frequency is going to attract that energy, and so that it's actually the soul energy that the imposition is after. and really what's our remedy then is to not be affected by that imposition. So I've got now to this point where I can feel the heat come on, and I can feel them at me, and it's like, oh, so fucking what? It's like, I don't even entertain it anymore. I can, because I can get stronger. I have to be very careful too, because I'll find any little nook, any little crevice, any little thing where they can get in and hijack or do, So, okay. And that's why when you were saying before, when things come along in life, I've started to see things differently. Anything that happens to me can be turned around for the highest and the best frequency. Yeah, because it's all energy. It's all energy. I could get really, really lost if I looked into the and judged that energy, because it will be foul, it will be disgusting, it will be hideous if I go there. So, yeah, okay, yep, they're just having a go, and then I see my field, and my whole thing is infusing love into me, that beautiful yin energy that was missing. Which actually can be balanced up through acupuncture. You got the right acupuncturist who really knows it can be done. I got up off that acupuncture session, my life changed immediately. I started to sleep. I've had chronic insomnia, so you cannot sleep, and you'll always be on hyper alert when that, and this is something that's going to happen to people that have been sexually abused in an SRA, or used, or living with a narcissistic personality or whatever, is that you'll lose parts of yourself. Sorry, I kind of zoned out a little bit there. My main thing is working on presence and staying present, because that's what has to happen. Otherwise, I'm open and I'm vulnerable, and I'll start floundering around like anything. So it's actually staying in the body, soul, in the heart space. You got your beautiful toroidal field, that is your protection, vibrating at a very quick frequency, and then when those energies which are lower than ours come on, they just boom. And honestly, I actually get to see, and I don't wish harm. We've had enough harm, we've had enough suffering, but people who have been sending that to me have been getting hurt from what they've been sending to me, and they are learning that they cannot send it to me anymore, and getting frustrated because they get hungry, because they sold their souls. And it's terrible. It's terrible. And my big heart could have compassion and could have got pulled into that at some stage, but I will not cross that boundary now, because my warrior parts have come up, and they hold me as well. Yeah. So I'm a party. Parts of parties everywhere. Like I was listening to Carrie's latest interview, and she just explains it so beautifully. And she's also such an inspiration to me, because I can see how much she's grown. And I know that I'm going to be an inspiration for people, because people will see by this interview how much I've grown, because we are together now, all of our survivors, sharing, lifting each other up, encouraging each other along, ultimate compassion for the terrible things that have happened, and the terrible things that we were supposed to do, and some of the things that we did, because I also now saw that I was sold to someone. I don't actually want to mention his name now. He was someone who was a Commonwealth champion, and he partied a lot with the Queen. I was sold to him in the town that I was being raised in, and it was a violent sodomy assault came out of it. But what actually happened in it was I went into an altar as a young girl, prepubescent, being flirtatious. So I was flirtatious with this man, not knowing what was going to happen. But it was just like that was what was programmed into me. It was like my body was doing things that I wasn't aware of, like stripper type dance sort of stuff. And then I was violently, that was so violent. But the thing that happened, and this is where we can lose so much, and I put stuff to regain, I've got a lot of sexual healing to do, that it was so violent. But what happened was I had a massive orgasmic explosion, which was just so incredibly confusing, because I've never been able to connect with a human being in the way that I should have been able to, because it was, and like I even have been like I've had frigidity and no libido, and like yoga's a way that I can keep my body and my energy sorted, but I still don't really know how to deal with that sort of pure energy. And I know that it will be part of my future healing somehow. I don't look for a relationship. It's not like that. I'm not like that. I just know that I'm going along in life and I'm having the experiences that I need and what I came here for, to heal my part of this paradigm. So yeah, I've seen a lot more. It just keeps going deeper and deeper. There's so much that I don't know, and I actually asked the question, how much have I seen and how much more is there? And what I was shown that I was seeing was only still a small chunk of everything. But I don't have to see everything. I only have to see what my body is suffering from. And so even one instance is bad enough, so I've kind of got to that where I'm at, is that I'll have boundaries even with my memories now, so that they are in that safe context. But I've got better at them, but the memories get harder and harder to see, especially when you start seeing things. And it's been in another, when you start seeing aliens. I've seen greys, I've seen mantids, I've seen reptilians, let alone just ghoulish type demons and things that are just so frightful to the psyche. I know that when I was in the MK Ultra lab down there below, I don't even know what to call it. It's like square rooms, lots of technology.
Where was that? Was that at the lodge that you were abused at for SRA, or was that somewhere else?
There's lodges on the surface, but there's places underground. And I don't know if the places underground are called lodges. Maybe they are to the Masons. I don't know. But they have their little ones that are up above that we're supposed to believe is the lodges. But there are places that they go underground. I know it was underground because the light, there was no natural light. Yeah, it was, but they're big, elaborate structures, like columns and stones and stairs and spiral staircases and yeah, just bleh. Sorry, it's just disgusting. Like, I can't actually handle churches. I can't handle even the pyramids. I can't handle all these structures. I feel it. So, but I think what even is underground is even more, and right in the earth, which is when I was on that masonic checkerboard and that subordinate position when I was in that journey. The part of the way that I brought it about, um, that part of me got super fucking angry at that, and it swirled in part of me, and in that journey, I picked up a pickaxe and I smashed and smashed and smashed and smashed and smashed and smashed. I smashed that table, and I did it with anger, like I felt it until it was rubble, and then it started to swirl into a spiraling vortex and go back into the earth. And the insult was that it had been made out of the elements of the earth. So that was the imposition on top of the earth as well. Like things speak in all of these ways that interconnect and interweave with me. So and so that was the destruction of polarity. Actually, Marie and I, we did an interview on that together. We started to do little interviews, but because we're both incredibly suppressed, they reached like less than 100 people or something, so that's okay, because we just feel that both of us feel that we also need to speak uncensored, and that's what we do. It's a way where we can both speak uncensored, because her life has also had that. She's had the most incredible life and experience and recall, and she sees just like I see. So it's a miracle that I found this beautiful friend, and that we are a team who does work together. Yeah.
I think so too. And we did a episode, your first episode actually was with Marie. So for people listening, if you missed that, or if it's been a while since you watched it, it is a gold mine of information. I encourage you guys to watch it. And then also, like Poppy was saying about Carrie, her journey of where she started with the interviews and then where she's at now, and like watching her blossom over time. You can actually see that with Poppy too, and it melts my heart. It's so sweet. You had a lot more courage with Marie there. I know that helped having all of us, but just seeing you be able to open up and your courage and your confidence now, it's so neat to see that, Poppy. You've come a far way too in a short time.
Yeah, it's only been 10 months since the big active memory recall. Well, actually, it's funny because I've had a couple of people say, slow down with this journey stuff, people who care for me. And it's like, well, I can't, because the memories are just coming up. They're just coming. And it's like, then the journey is there. And then I need it, because Marie calls it cooking. So what happens is that, you'll go in and you'll have a journey. You might deal with like I found that the coordinator, it was like the masonic coordinator who's been through all my rituals, everything through my life, has handled my handles, has everything, and made it so highly coordinated. And I would address him, and I found him in the journey. And then when you find him and you address him, and then sometimes you'll find etheric technology. Like there was something behind my eye that was almost like a looking glass where they could look into me, and that got eliminated. And when that got eliminated, I literally felt them floundering, because they couldn't see what I was going to do, what I was planning to do next. They couldn't. So I think there's all sorts of technology that they put into people, that they really want to monitor, and certain people who are a real a threat to their system, people who've held on to cosmic knowledge, or like Gray's got an enormous amount of knowledge that he puts through, which is really, really strong and really necessary for people to see. I'd love everybody to tune into that as well. And I love it when you do these little breakdowns, these little wee short ones. I've used those, and I sometimes share them in my presentations, because they are the punchy little bits, because people they'll have a shorter concentration span, and then it's just something that would ignite their passion to look forward and to maybe explore this out, especially the way that you present it compassionately, and like, don't be afraid. We're all doing this part, we're all doing it together. These amazing communities all around the world now, And I just think, oh my gosh, it's such a joy for me having felt alone. Like this was the only one that it ever happened to. Like when I first heard about Janita, so I was like, I literally thought, oh, there's only about 5 survivors in the world that are talking out. And it's like, and I thought, oh, we should all get together. We should all meet. And I was like all disheartened because it just wasn't there. And also there was electromagnetic interference between getting through, these trips and stuff that even stop other survivors from connecting. And then I found out, oh my gosh, look at us all. But like the ones that have, like Spali and these and Max and the ones that have gone through this terrible programming where they have to torture, these things that they had to me, I admire them and so much, and they are inspirations to me because they've had the courage to be so honest, to say this is how it is, when there's a whole world out there that have been judging people. And people who've been through SRA, they get judged, or people become fearful of you, and they will think that you're out there doing all of this terrible, horrible magic because you've been a part of it and been used by it. And yes, a lot of us have been programmed even to do that, but the ones that have got themselves out, we never want to go back there. We got out because of the great love, like Kathy O'Brien, one of the first ones that really, really taught. She got out because of her amazing capacity for love, that she just vibrates that, oozes that. It is what's necessary, and that is a common theme that I'm finding among all survivors. Survivors are beautiful people, but we get undermined, or I got undermined by my parts, my terrified parts, the parts that wanted to defend me when I sensed energies, when because when people go on about all this Sumerian stuff, all of this gods, Greek gods stuff, all these nefarious ones, I get very triggered. I get very triggered by any presence apart from what's absolutely pure, because of the trickery, and because it's been in my perception all of my life, and I was told it's not real and it's not true. So I tried to filter it out. You've got filters. And so finally I can see that what I saw was always correct. And I've just come back to that little girl who still can be a little bit naive at times. I've approached other SRA survivors and people, because I don't come with filters. I'm not very well. I come with filters, but I don't come with filters. So I kind of just go blah, because of the energy and the frequency of love. I kind of just felt, and I've approached people like, oh, and I feel for this person, and I see them, and I see their soul, and I might have said something, and I just say it as I see it. And that will often get misinterpreted as like, oh, careful, this is a tricky area, we've got to go back. And now I can see that. So there's this part of me, because I think it all happened when I was 2, that I'm still a little innocent 2-year-old. There's a part of me that still, I need my more savvy parts to come in and protect that 2-year-old, and just like, don't, just be careful where you're going to be unfiltered, where you're going to be uncensored, because you've got to make sure that your energy field is going to be strong enough to handle, what it is. Because I give myself away a little bit, what I say, where I'm up to, and all of that. And I know that I have to be strong enough to deal with that. But it all needs to be said. And I have prayers in place that I'm not allowed to say what's not safe to say at the moment, because it's going to go even deeper in the future. This is still we're getting deeper down into what this is and how it came to be, and how we can get our ways out of it is the biggest thing. But yeah, I'll keep questing and I'll keep asking questions because this is my life's work, I feel. And I feel like I'm only just beginning my new life at this grand age. We're later on in life. I feel very youthful. I actually know that as my body heals from all the siphoning and all the hijacking and the taking, I am actually appearing younger. Like I've still got a lot of skin-ish stuff, that stuff still coming out of the skin, and but I am becoming more youthful overall. And so that's really cool because, I've been siphoned. I started to go grey when I was 23. I got my first grey hairs because just the stresses of life, I think, and just like premature aging. But, like I've done 3 yoga practices in the last 2 weeks on my own. I've been back on my yoga mat and what a joy. And I'm getting more stronger again and more flexible again. And I love yoga. I just love it. So, but just it's because I consciously connect with earth and sky and yoga through my whole body and my being, and to the point where you feel that love just vibrating in your body, and it's beautiful.
Bobby, you are such a bright light. Oh my gosh. I love listening to you. It's like where you start in a lot of these conversations is like so dark. We'll talk about a
Yeah.
movie or something, but at the end of your conversation and dialogue on that topic, it just shifts from one polarity to the other. And it's like, how do I feel good at the end of this conversation? Like what she started with was so bad. Like you really transmute this energy into something really beautiful.
Yeah, these podcasts are healing in themselves. Stuff is happening. Real good stuff is happening in the conversation, and then even more as people connect with it, and it's like a ripple effect. Um, Different people are being inspired or by different parts, to for the highest and the best, which is what it's about. The highest and the best is about the raising of frequency where that dross cannot even function because it's too dense and it's too heavy. And so we will be leaving it behind. And for me, that's what my life is about, leaving it behind, because I've had life after life of this stuff. Um, even a radically political life, where I sold out, to learn, I guess. Um, but yeah, just it's hard to get around in life without feeling, the blood of children everywhere. Especially children. That's what really gets to me. I know there's animals and I know there's grown-ups, but it's the children that really, really, really does it for me. Yeah. So I I I really want to be their advocate, most and foremost. Yeah, like I have all sorts of accusations about being public and about coming out, and some people just think I want attention. There's a lot of haters. I've had a lot of haters.
Totally. If you wanted attention, I always say this to people, like, why would you pick
Yeah,
that? You could pick you
exactly.
could go get attention from like anything good and like happy to talk about. Like, why would you pick these like horrible things? It's so maddening when people say that. It's like, why would anybody want attention for this? Like, that's not what it's about ever.
No, no.
It's
Well, I'm a
ego.
little bit like you. Like you were held up earlier in your life with your health and that health regime. I was actually capable of becoming an amazing gymnast, but then it was to do with gymnastics that ritual was involved. After that ritual where I was sodomized to that point that I talked to you before, I couldn't go back into that gymnastics place. I couldn't. I would trip. I would lost coordination, and I could not do gymnastics anymore. And it was my love. It was my passion. I didn't want to do it competitively. It was the movement. It was the feeling of somersaulting. I mean, first of all, I couldn't do anything like I could do a forward somersault, but I couldn't do a backward one, which is actually technically far more easier because of my fear of what was behind me. Yeah, and that was the last thing that I did. I tried, and one of the last things I did was I sort of managed to do a forward somersault, and then that was it. I couldn't do gymnastics anymore. I couldn't do anything behind me, like the flick flacks or the backward somersaults. I couldn't do it, and I would fall off the beam. I would fall on the parallel bars. I would just want to cry, and that was the end of gymnastics for me. And I believe that I'm that my body and my freedom is to be able to move like that, to move like a gymnast. And so I think maybe why yoga is so vital to me now. But I've had spinal surgery and stuff, so I work with that as well. But yeah, that was a hijacking, and then it's gone into the Olympians. So I just see it. I connected a little bit with this because I loved watching gymnastics, and there's this really amazing, outstanding gymnast who the world loves at the moment. And then she spoke up a few months ago about sexual abuse, and I immediately knew this was satanic. So she said it was within, it was to do with the medical teams and things to do with her gymnastics career. And I immediately knew it was satanic. I tried to connect with that her, and and then now she's making those symbols, and she's has to have fans. She has to have a massive amount of fans to gain her energy for her Olympic career. And this man who used me, he was 4 in a row. He got gold medals. That's I don't know if it's every 4 years. This was Commonwealth Games. He shone. He got energy off me. He harvested my energy sexually. And that contributed, and that's how I feel that contributes to sports. Just the same way that it will do it with music. That oh gosh, there's someone I really, really would love. One day she'll be ready to talk to you or someone. But she has been hijacked of her musical, and the ones that are out there are masquerading in the total satanic world as they took her gifts. So they actually take this is where soul swapping and destiny swapping becomes so really fucked up crazy stuff, that even right now I think they're after people's souls even more, and that a lot of these ones that have sold their souls are actually wanting to take over the soul of someone who's still got it, which I feel that was that Itchy Lee character when I nearly committed suicide, and he would have got my soul out of it because he sold his. He's a grandmaster to whatever he's a grandmaster to. Funny how we all had to call him Susu Nim, which means grandmaster, literally. And that he sat on his bloody throne, and he did worship. And we were supposed to dance to him when we wanted us to dance to him, and sing when he wanted us to sing. And we were programmed to, this is how it all interacts and weaves together. That people, it's not just money that they take off each other, but it's our innate soul power. So yeah, have you heard much similar to that?
Yeah, it's definitely in alignment with other things that I've heard for sure. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's a lot of information we've covered today.
It is, I know. And I was just thinking I have so many more questions for you, but it actually led me to think that like we could do whole other episodes on a couple of these topics. And so I want to talk to you about that because I think we could do some deep dives, and I think that we're going to get a lot of questions from this
Yeah.
that we can contribute to it.
Oh,
Um,
I'd love to answer questions.
yeah,
It's been a real thing that I would love. I love that. I love being put on the spot to ask a question. because like when you're put on the spot, that's often where that information just goes whoop, and it comes up, and that's quite exciting to be.
Yes, and to give people a little teaser, so two of the topics that I'm going to talk to you about after are the topics of like aliens and demons and UAPs, UFOs, those type of technologies. And then I wanted to do more on Masonic dualities and how those show up because they're everywhere. And I think if
Yes.
we can help people see some of that in the physical form that they're used to seeing and don't realize what it is, I think we could do a really cool episode on that.
Yeah, we could, and I would really love to. I actually do feel that this is my calling.
I do too.
Yeah, yeah, and I really thank you for supporting that and inviting me in. Um, after so many people not wanting to hear my voice, not wanting to know, it's like, oh, this is beautiful, and also to have, like, I feel like it's really loving and compassionate connection. You know, I've always been there's a part of me who's been afraid of losing that, and then to find people that are actually solid in that, who keep that, and it's like, yeah, I still love you, Poppy. I still love you, Poppy. It's like that, for me, because that little shattered girl, and it's lovely because I do get to see the insecurities and sort them out fairly quickly when I do now. But, I'm still this work in progress, and it's part of humanity.
We all love you so much. My audience just loves you whenever you come on. And it was devastating when they took your episode down, but we know that means it's almost like a badge of honor when YouTube does that, even though there's penalties for it, but that
Yeah,
means that you were sharing something that people need to hear. So, it's always amazing to have you on, Poppy. You are a wealth of knowledge beyond, I think, even what you realize. Like you have learned so much in such a short time and you've taken so much time to like really thoroughly understand some of the things that you went through on different levels and you're
yeah,
helping other people be able to layer their own experiences and sort of peel the onion off and with it not being so overwhelming to them because there is a lot of
yeah,
people that have hope. There's a lot of people
yeah.
really lost. There's a lot of people just waking up, and I love
Oh,
how you said that, that's going to happen. I believe that too. I think there's going to be more and more people waking up because the frequencies and also so many more people are having the courage like you. They're saying, I'm really scared to speak out, but I'm going to. And so
mm,
when other people
mm,
see that, they're like, well, Poppy's speaking out. I need to get up there and speak out, So I think we
yeah,
will start seeing more and more and more people, but we just all love you for helping pave the way, for sharing what you've learned. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. It's not about attention. You are the least attention seeking person ever. That's
yeah,
not why you're doing this. You're doing this
mm,
because for one, it's good to get it out of your body. And for two,
mm,
and I think this is what's most important for you from what I'm able to hear, like you want the person on the other side of the screen to benefit from this information, to not have to
yeah,
struggle and suffer as much as you did, to be able to learn quicker than they did before they found this
yeah,
information, and we're all better for
mm,
it. And we all appreciate you so much for your courage to share, Poppy.
yeah. And I appreciate you all so much. Even though I've been totally rolled by humanity, I really love humanity, and that's a miracle. So
And
thank you.
humanity loves you, girl. We all love you. It's really a blessing. And you're welcome on here anytime, like I said, and I'd love to have you on to talk about some more things. But for people who are listening, who are like, darn, I hate when these episodes end, you have a YouTube channel that you've been doing more and more on. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share about your YouTube channel. I'll bring it up on the screen while you're talking, and we can sort of talk about what you're doing on there and if you have any plans, and you can share some of the stuff that you've been posting about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I have actually, well, I've been meditating. Like, I actually follow along with the Mayan calendar, which are, those are the frequencies given to us by Source. So why wouldn't I want to? And when I do really go into that. And I sort of have this sort of ancient and pure knowledge of it that comes from another place. It's not so much like the modern day timekeepers, because, you know, remember, everything gets infiltrated over time. So I like to go back to the purity of it all. Yeah, so I have been doing a little bit. Yeah, you can see that one there, from polarity to unity with Marie. That's with Marie. So that was the one that we did over the ritual on the Masonic checkerboard, and that has answers in there for people who are interested. And yeah, I so I'm interactive with the source energies, and because actually everything does fall back onto this time where there was this big infiltration and anomaly, and the change in our brains to the left brain, and that's been a part of our evolution to come out of this time, to come out of the blood sacrifice times. That Satanism stuff has been at the bottom. So I'm sort of reporting on coming through where humanity has been going, and what the consciousness is, and what we can possibly do about it. Yeah. And that one there, 10 Earth, Mother Earth's dream, and who we serve, the splitting of consciousnesses, that can help to explain bits for people. I mean, there's something in everything, and you may agree, you know, like, I'm just doing the best to present what I find and what I know from my perspective, and everybody else will have their perspective, and you know, if it's enhanced, great, you know, and if not, just ignore it, and know that some of it still may be to do with the trauma of my past, and that, but I meditate with every single presentation. You know, when I did realize that not every voice in my head was my own, I realized I had to make sure that I got in touch with the pure essence. Yeah. So yeah, that's mostly where it's been at, and I'm trying to use Substack, but I don't know if I'm using it as absolutely properly. Yeah, so I do have the Substack. Oh, it's interesting to see what it looks like from your end, because I don't get to know. And I'm also thinking of possibly going to BitChute it, because I know that what I do share is the really censored stuff, and I've already had all my warnings. I've had an extra warning. They made an agreement. I don't know, the last time I got 4. So normally you only have 3 and you're penalised. So I'm fortunate in that way, in that it's still been up. But also, when I watch my own video back, I see the numbers go up, and then I see them go backwards. So maybe more people are watching than it says. It could be that, but I come from the whole philosophy that even if it helps one person, then it's worth putting it up. And so I've kind of wanted things to reach bigger numbers, but also I guess it has to be safe for me. I feel Source protecting me with everything that I do. You know, I speak on behalf of Source because I relay those energies that come through the sun. I speak on behalf of Mother Earth, who feels the raping, the pillaging, and the blood in her, and the, you know, the rituals that have been in her, and her cleansing. Like, she's actively cleansing. You know, we've got earthquakes, we've got all sorts going on. There's all sorts of floods, and there's all sorts of stuff, and there's all sorts of plots, and there's all sorts of tricks. But nature, just like me, is working everything out for her good. She's coming through. We're coming through all together.
Oh, so, yeah. You. And I love that you're using this. Her Substack and her YouTube channel are both at Mayan Missions all together. And so you guys can go type that into Substack or YouTube, and I will also have that in the show notes for you guys. The first time Poppy interviewed, she had a decent amount of videos on her channel, but since then she has, over these last few months especially, she's really been posting a lot of content, and it is gold. It's absolute gold, the stuff that she's posting. So if you guys want to learn more, it's also a great way to interact with her. You guys can go comment on her stuff, and you guys can do the same on her Substack. So that's one way too that you guys can sort of get in touch with her and go lift her up. And I really encourage you guys to do that. It's really important that we get eyes on these survivors and, show the enemy that we're paying attention, that we're watching. And it's great to learn from people who have experiences that we haven't and insights that we don't. And we're so lucky that people like Poppy take time out of their busy days, especially this stuff can be really triggering to talk about and destabilizing depending on what the topic is, and she's doing it for free and on her own time, despite everything that she's been going through health-wise and healing. We get to go on this journey with Poppy, and it's really cool. So I really encourage you guys to go follow her on YouTube. And like I said, I'll have those links in the show notes too for you guys. And her Substack is awesome too. Please go subscribe to that. It's free. I love these platforms because they give the option to monetize sometimes depending on the content, but it's awesome how many people are just journaling and, being investigative journalists and creating content through video and writing for free for us so we can learn. So I encourage you guys to please go support Poppy and to do the same with this episode. Go share it with people. There's so much information in one of these episodes, and I'm sure that there's somebody that that might be waking up or who this might be useful for. So I really encourage you guys to do the same with Poppy's videos and with this video. I always say I don't ever ask for money. I just ask that you guys go share it with one person, So I really would love if you guys would do that and just help elevate Poppy's voice, help other people hear this information. There's lots of good health information too for people. And Poppy, like I said, I would love to have you back on, and I appreciate so much that you came on again with us today. This was a beautiful conversation. And of course, it ended on a really high note.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. It just feels so pure, speaking in this context with, covered with that beautiful prayer, or protected. Yeah, absolutely protected and held, and that we're all working towards the same goal, which is unfolding.
Yes,
Thank you.
we're doing it. We're bringing our consciousnesses together, and we're collecting, we're helping raise that collective consciousness. So I'm really thrilled that, that's been one of the side effects of all of this. And I'm so honored that you've added your piece to it, and love that you're a recurring guest. It's always so amazing whenever you come on. So thank you for being here, Poppy. And thank you guys all for listening. We definitely couldn't do this without you. We appreciate you. Like I said, no matter what platform you're on, I'll have all of Poppy's information and mine in the show notes. Just connect with us wherever you can. We never know, like Poppy said, especially YouTube. It's so fragile with what it allows. And so if you guys are on there, and a lot of people are, don't let that be your only way that you're keeping in touch with us, because they are the quickest to deplatform and terminate accounts. So with that in mind, I ask you all to go back to prayer and to please pray over Poppy's platforms, pray over her and her health and her healing, pray over her cat too, and everything in
Yes,
her life.
yes.
But please pray
Thank
over
you.
her YouTube channel too. She does have some strikes on it, like she said, and I think we can come together and throw some good energy at it. We can help, we can help these creators continue to go forward where they're trying to be silenced. So please add some prayers to Poppy, send them her way. Go give her some encouragement. Go follow her. And you guys, thank you so much. God bless you, and we will see you next time.